I'm sorry,
Oh, no problem.
my big feet.
Today is April 22nd, 2021. My name is Joe Todd. This is an interview with James Holland in Oklahoma City, and you live in Norman.
Yes.
Sir, where were you born?
Would you believe Camp Polk, Louisiana,
When's your birthday?
August 23rd, 1952.
Okay. Who's your father?
Jerry H. Holland,
Jerry H. Holland. And your mother?
Mary, it's Mary Ross, and I'm not sure what her, well, Mary Ross Holland,
Okay. Ross was a maiden name?
yes.
Okay. Okay. Did you go through school in Camp Polk?
No, I did not. I received my commission through the ROTC detachment at the University of Oklahoma.
Okay. When were you commissioned?
I was commissioned May 7th, 1976.
1976. OUROTC. Yeah. In ROTC, who was your favorite instructor in your ROTC?
Oh, I'd have to say it would be Lieutenant Colonel Willard Buck Rogers.
Why was he your favorite?
Well, he was an interesting man. He had, when he wore his greens, he had a glider pilot badge.
Mm-hmm.
On his overseas cap, he had the 101st insignia. And he fought in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And jumped into the Dominican Republic. Now, that's all pretty normal, I guess, for somebody of that in that time frame. But he had one of the rarest medals you'll ever see, apart from the Medal of Honor. At that time, he had a CIB with 2 battle stars. He flew his glider into the 101st Airhead at Normandy, and he made it through the rest of World War II. I would assume from that he was probably at Bastogne. After the war, he got out, went to school under the GI Bill, and was commissioned a second lieutenant in time to go to Korea, where he had a mortar platoon. After that, he stayed in. Like I said, he was part of the airdrop into the Dominican Republic. And then he went to Vietnam. At one point, he was, and the only reason I know this is because we were talking about one day. He was in a place in Southeast Asia where we weren't at that time, which tells me he was in Cambodia prior to our incursion into that particular country. He had a good sense of humor, and he knew what he was talking about. In fact, I was one of those second lieutenants when I graduated and was commissioned. I was one that could actually read a map and navigate using a map and a compass. I guess I was lucky. I never failed a map reading compass test. Yeah.
Okay. So after you were commissioned, where were you assigned?
I was commissioned in the reserves,
You
and
didn't go active duty.
no,
Okay.
that all came later.
Okay.
I was I went through Fort Knox, went through the armored school, and I was 33rd in my class of 150 some odd. Our class was so big that they had to break it up into two sections. And the two sections would flip-flop on their classes. The A group would get one set, and then the B group would, depending upon the classes, A would get it first, B would get it in the afternoon, and we would do in the afternoon what the B group did in the morning.
Okay. What type of classes did you have at Fort Knox?
We had classes on tactics, obviously, more map reading. We had tactics on things like how to run a platoon, how to operate everything in the vehicle. By the time we graduated, we were qualified to command the tank. We could work as the tank commander, gunner, loader, driver.
Okay.
One of our standards was we had to be able to drop a breech block and disassemble it in 1 minute. And then rebuild it and put it back into position again in 1 minute.
What gun?
This is the 105 L67 gun.
Okay.
It was a British gun which was based upon, I think, an American tank cannon. We learned about radio, the procedures. Things like how to recover a tank that got buried in mud up to the fenders over the tracks, and we learned how to brake track and put it back together again.
How long you were at Fort Knox? How long did school last?
It was 100 days.
Okay.
One of the last things that we did was qualify on the 45.
Okay. So from Fort Knox, where'd you go?
Fort Knox, well, after that I came back to Oklahoma, back to Tulsa specifically, and I wound up being a platoon leader for the headquarters platoon of the 827th Repair Parts Company out of Muskogee.
Okay.
And the reason I wound up there was because after I returned, I was on the turnpike from Tulsa to Muskogee, because that was where the closest tank unit was.
Mm-hmm.
And I got halfway down there and realized I didn't know where it was. Now, perfect second lieutenant mistake. Well, I got on my CB radio, put out a call for information, and I was given directions. I got to the reserve center, started looking at it, and going, repair parts company. This is not an armored company. So again, I'm thinking, okay, I've just made the dilly of all second lieutenant screw-ups, right? And sounds logical. And I went in and started talking to the the personnel person in there. And that's how I wound up joining that particular company. We provided logistics maintenance, or logistics support for all of the units who were pulling summer camp.
Well, what unit was this?
This is the 827th Repair Parts Company.
Okay, 827, okay.
And we provided support for all of the vehicles that the units brought up with them for their summer camp. Well, every unit had this bad habit. Next to the last day before they left, they would come in and turn in requisitions for everything that they had torn up or that they needed to have to replace their vehicles to get going. And I did that for about 3 years. My last year with that particular unit, I was tasked to set up a gas chamber at what is that base? It's not Gruber. Well, there was a base just east of Fort Smith, Arkansas. Fort Chaffee.
Fort Chaffee, yes.
And I was the XO training officer and mess officer. So I turned in my requisition for the powdered CS. I turned in my requisitions for food for the company. I got up to the unit early, got my driver, and we went to our NMS truck, and we went over to Chappie, got everything set up, and we waited for the people to come and get down there so we start the training.
Mm-hmm.
Well, only about a third of the company showed up because there had been a last minute requirement for an inventory to be done. And I didn't know about this until I got back. At that point, I decided I needed to find someplace else. And I wound up with the 486 Civil Affairs Battalion. Well, Civil Affairs Company at that time.
What is civil affairs?
Civil Affairs is it's an odd duck, to be honest with you. A Civil Affairs section, or as they call them now, companies, but they're equivalent to a regular Army, a platoon, only they're very rank heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Our primary task was to act as a interface between the local civilian government in the area that we were operating in and the maneuver units that we were supporting. It might include something like making arrangements for medical supplies or a medical location. And if we were able to put that into place, then that would cut down on the tonnage of supplies which would have to be brought in to the area to enable the maneuver units to function.
Okay. You're a member of what team? What functional team?
Uh, I really don't, I really can't tell you because the way we worked at that time was we, we might function in several different fields all at the same time.
Okay.
When I was in Bosnia in 1996-97, we coordinated with the mayors of at least two different cities in the, well, correction. I worked with a group in the northwestern part of the Bosniak portion of Bosnia-Herzegovina. And there we dealt with two different mayors. Plus, we would also go out and take tours through the local communities, especially on market days, because we would take a look at prices on items that vendors had out for sale, and kind of keep an eye on them to see whether there was a large amount of inflation or whether whether the food products that were for sale looked like they were fresh or maybe getting a little older. In the second camp that I was in, which was east of Tuzla in the Bosnian area, we were instrumental in setting up an open air market, basically. It was a place where it was just inside the zone of separation between the Bosniak section and the Serbian section. And we set up this open air market where the Serbian and where the Serbs could come in and sell, and the Bosnians could go in and sell.
Okay.
Because if you're buying from one another, you're not going to be as inclined to be shooting people up. But I was with the 46th from January of 1980 until the 2nd of February 1998 when I retired.
Okay. What did you do when you first joined the 486? Were you called to active duty?
No.
Okay.
When my first few years in the 486th, I was probably the primary comm officer because I was a tanker and I knew how to use radios. I was part of the German language program, and I taught some classes, and then my first summer camp with the 46th, we came to Oklahoma City and operated out of the 45th ID's OCS building. While yeah, during that particular encampment, we were conducting a disaster drill for Oklahoma City and several other cities within the Oklahoma City massive. I had a team, and we went out every morning and talked to the local sheriff, the local fire department. We set up a disaster drill that we ran through, and I actually felt like I was doing something worthwhile. We even got into the state equivalent of the Department of Homeland Security offices, or bunker,
Okay.
would be the best way to describe it.
Where's that located?
Joe, it's been 40 years. And unfortunately, I don't remember.
Now, where did you have your annual training after Oklahoma City?
Well, in 80, yeah, we had two places actually. In 83, we went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And we put on a German school. We had a basic introduction to the German language. We looked at things as obscure as road signs, so that people could understand, okay, if you see a sign with a circle and a bar through it, that meant that you didn't go in. It was a one-way coming outway.
Yes.
I had 4 trips that I made. I actually went to Germany 4 times on exercises. There was one crested eagle, which was, well, where I was working was Wiesbaden, and it was U.S. only. Then in 85, 88, and 89, I worked with the German territorial forces. They're equivalent to our National Guard and Reserve. After that, due to different circumstances, I wound up doing some NCO courses. And I went to a camp out in California. I went to Fort Sam Houston. I went to Belize. Definitely nothing that you would normally expect a reserve unit to do.
When you were in Germany, what was the reaction of the local people to you?
I had no reaction. I enjoyed the people. Although you really can't tell, I also enjoyed the food and the beer.
But they were all friendly, the Germans?
Yeah.
Okay.
For one thing, we were I would say that the people that were sent over to Germany by our unit, as well as some groups that we sent over to Belgium and Holland, I'd say it was all pretty well. I'd say we were all pretty well received, and I would say that people we sent were the best ones we had in the unit. One of the things that you don't normally see in Germany, unless you're seeing tourists, are individuals walking around in blue jeans, cowboy boots, sneakers, well, maybe sneakers. But if you looked like you belonged, there was no issue. And most of us knew enough German or Belgian or Dutch that when we went into a restaurant, we acted like the locals. The kicker was we would go in and there's a pizza place that I found in the town of Bad Kreuznach where I could get a pizza and a beer. And nobody said a thing. And that is germane because we were not supposed to be drinking on or during the exercise. But if you didn't get stupid, there was nothing said. Having said that, the last time I went over there, we had some National Guardsmen with us. And one night, 3 of their NCOs went into a club and they wound up getting Article 13s. So, I got to see, well, my second trip over there, we had an extra day, so we all went out on a tour of Germany. We went down the Rhine on a bus, got out and saw several castles, and we went into a couple of their walled towns. It was nice.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, very nice.
Where were you when Saddam invaded Kuwait?
The week that he invaded Kuwait, I was at work at Tinker Air Force Base. The 3rd of August, 1990, I took the day off, and the wife and I and the kids drove up to the unit, and I turned in my paperwork for basically volunteering to go overseas if required.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of those jobs that the invasion of Kuwait was obviously something that was going to be a big civil affairs operation.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because while, how do I put this? While Jews and Christians and Muslims are all people of the book, they're all very, very different in their outlooks on life. So at that time I didn't realize exactly what was going to be happening. But I knew that there would be a requirement for what we did.
Now, I understand you went to Fort Hood.
Oh, yes, Fort Hood. I received a phone call one afternoon at work from our brigade headquarters, which was based out of San Antonio. And I was asked whether or not I would be amenable to spending a month down there working with the 5th Corps G5 section. Had no idea what I was going to be doing. And the conversation lasted about 15 minutes. And by the time it was over, I'd committed to doing not 1 month, but 2.5 months. And I was there from the 15th of September through the 30th of November. In fact, I got home just in time to go to the December drill.
So what'd you do at Fort Hood?
Oh, Fort Hood. My primary tasking was, well, to begin with, was to go down to the map room every morning and every afternoon and make a acetate of all of the locations of American troops
American troops in.
in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
Plus, I would pick up all of the reports sent over, that had been sent to us by an observer or two that we had over there. And I would do that, and like I said, I would do that twice every day. And every morning and every afternoon, I would brief my boss, as well as the rest of the section, on what had happened since the last update. In addition to that, I would take myself and another individual would take the reports that we'd gotten and would start trying to organize them. About 2 weeks after we got into this routine, we started putting everything onto a computer, and we started putting together a not a manual, but a guide to Saudi operations. One of the items that I remember was that we had to, if we were going to cross a vehicle over a pipeline, we had to find one of the areas that had been covered over so that the pipeline would not get crushed. The pipelines that, well, I mentioned that I was at Hopper El Batten. There was a pipeline that ran right next to the main road going from Hopper El Batten to the northwestern portion of Saudi Arabia. And that was a major pipeline that had to be crossed. So we had to be very careful. That pipeline, if I remember correctly, went up through Syria, through Jordan and into Syria, and the oil would be loaded onto tankers in in one of the ports of Syria. That's the one I remember. But I think by the time we got through putting that report together, sometime in mid-November, it was several hundred pages in length. Also, I was involved in 2 different command post exercises, and somehow or another I wound up working the night shift, which really was not that bad. But
Now, Colonel Pugh was the G5, wasn't he?
yes, she was a really good commander. And then the first working day of every month, the entire base had a fun run. Then I think I was running every day, and it was a good tour.
Okay.
Plus I was doing the last part of my command and staff course.
Okay. So, you get back in December. What happens?
I came home from work the last Friday before Christmas. So that would have been the 23rd of December, 1990. I get a phone call from the senior unit admin person, who was also our training guru. And he told me, Jim, you're going to be called up in the next few days. You're going to Saudi Arabia with a unit out of Kansas City, I believe. Apparently somebody had not wanted him to know what was happening, but he thought I needed a heads up. So it's fine. Saturday morning we went to my parents' house in Tulsa. Came back Sunday night. And I went to work Monday morning. And I'd been there about 2 hours. Well, the wife calls. And what she said was, Jim, you need to call your unit. Well, no problem. I figured that I was going to be told I was going to Kansas City. I called up the unit. Of course, I cheated because I figured out how to activate or how to access the Audubon system from my desk. And I was told, Captain Holland, you're going to Lubbock. How soon can you be there? Well, it's out of the blue. So I go, well, how soon can you give me orders? They said, well, we can get them to you tomorrow morning. I said, fax them in to me. Here's the fax number. I went to my boss, told her I was going to take off, that I'd been called up, and she said, okay, and went back to my desk and called my wife up, told her, come get me. She did. We went over to the clothing sales store over on base,
Where were you working?
Tinker Air Force Base.
Okay.
And I picked up a couple of things that I thought I would need. Basically, a folder to put, or a pocket folder I could put my BDU pants, and some matte pencils or matte pens. And I got this nice, warm Norwegian Army undershirt. I should have got the pants.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different story. At that point, we went home. I started getting my clothes ready. Went and got a haircut. And the next morning, we went up to the office and I got a copy of my orders, gave my boss a copy, went over to the travel office, and we would stop over there the morning before to make the arrangements, and gave them a copy of my orders and received a copy of my travel vouchers. They took me to the airport, and I flew down to Lubbock, Texas, and went with the 413th.
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 Civil Affairs.
Civil Affairs Battalion.
Okay. Okay.
For the next 4 days, I was, for the next 3 nights, I stayed in billeting at the air base there in Lubbock. A very good friend of mine by the name of James Reed showed up the next evening. He was in Pennsylvania at the time when he got his orders. We were both in the same platoon, which was the headquarters section. And we did what needed to be done. The next to the last day, they had 4 platoons, I think. And what we did was we took 2-hour shifts loading up a Connex with the stuff we needed to take. Well, when it was our turn at the bat, it was like, this ain't gonna fly. Whoever packed this in had no idea. So we unloaded it, reset everything so we had a solid base, and then the lighter stuff up top. And I got my butt chewed out by the supply officer because, well, actually I'm not really sure why. I think it was the fact that he didn't like the fact that we had redone everybody else's mistakes and we'd still gotten more done than they had in their shifts. And I then got called into the commander's office and I explained what happened, and the commander said, okay, go on. Then the next morning we had our final formations at the Lubbock Guard Base, and we loaded onto buses to go to the airfield, the airport, and we flew from Lubbock to Fort Bragg. Well, not Fort Bragg. The air base just outside Fort Bragg.
Pope.
Thank you. Pope Air Force Base. I haven't been thinking about this in ages. Yeah, you have to understand. But we flew on Trump Air.
Trump Air.
Trump Air. December of 91, or December of 90, excuse me,
To where?
to Pope Air Force Base
Okay.
from Lubbock. And it was a great flight. In fact, one of the best I've been on. We got into Pope, took buses into Fort Bragg, where we were put in the old Special Forces, the old Special Forces barracks. They're just on the other side of the fence, separating Bragg and Pope. The next at that time, there was one barracks for the 6 or 7 females we had, and all the men were stuck in one barracks for 2 weeks. To say that we were packed tighter than sardines is probably an understatement. The 15th of June, or the 15th of January, 91. The barracks just to the west of the barracks where the men were had emptied out. So all the officers went over there. And we wound up getting a television in there for the next month and a half maybe. And we watched the opening of the war,
The Air War?
the air war. The ground campaign hadn't started yet because one of the smartest things that we did during that entire campaign was, instead of making it purely a NATO run operation, we got the Egyptians and the Syrians and the Turks, as well as obviously Saudi Arabia. So it became a multinational force aimed at kicking Iraq back out of the Kuwaiti borders, rather than a conflict to take over the Kuwaiti oil fields.
Okay. Question.
Yes.
Did you see General Schwarzkopf or Colin Powell talk about the invasion on CNN?
I really don't remember if I did or not.
Because
Depending upon when they talked about it, we were in. Okay, they finally had transportation available for us around the middle of February.
let me interrupt real quick.
Yes.
Because when I was at Fort Bragg, we saw General Schwarzkopf talk about the invasion from the sea. And we're wondering, why has he given all of our invasion plans from the sea? He told where we're going to do it, how, and where.
That was not what happened. Okay?
It was misinformation.
Yes.
And CNN has never admitted they were used.
The Marines, along with the 2nd Brigade of 1st Cav, were on the coast.
Okay, go ahead and tell you left Fort Bragg, and where'd you go?
We went into a city on the Persian Gulf.
Daharan.
Yes, Dhahran. And we landed at about 2 o'clock in the morning and got onto the buses, and they bused us to the 1st Cav's reception center. We stayed there for 3 days. The reason we were there for 3 days was because all of our vehicles came over the northern route through Gander, Ireland, and so forth.
To come over by ship?
No, they came over by C-130.
Okay, C-130. Okay.
We came over on a 141, I believe.
Okay.
And we had to wait for them to come in.
Oh, yeah.
So for 3 days, we got used to the temperatures.
When you first got off the airplane, what was your reaction at Daharan? When they opened the plane,
Well, I can't tell you what I was thinking. It was probably like something on the order of, well, here I am, now it's time to find out how much I've actually learned.
how was it hot? Was it heat?
It was 2 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
People think that deserts are hot.
Yeah.
During the day, they are. But at night, there's nothing to hold in the heat. So the temperatures drop real quickly. And at that point, we were all tired. We just wanted to get some rack time.
Did you go to Kobar Towers?
Yes, I did. But we went to Kobar on our departure.
Okay.
We were there for a week and a half, I
You didn't go to
think.
Kobar when you landed there?
No,
Okay.
no. We were out a good 20 miles into the desert
With the first cab?
with the first cab.
Okay.
And so we got acclimated pretty quickly. However, at night, and I have a picture showing what my tent mate would wear at night. There in the first few weeks we were there, and we around 8 o'clock or so would start putting on all of our extra warm gear, and then by 9 o'clock the next morning, we were taking off everything we didn't need, just keeping the uniforms on. But this is the funny part. When I got to Lubbock on the 27th, I went through to get my gear that I was supposed to have for the desert. Well, I'm 6'3", about 160 pounds, or at that time, and the only cold weather gear they had were the insulated long johns, and that was it. What they had left was extra small. So I was awful glad I had that Norwegian shirt. But, okay, we were in the reception camp, and then the fourth day there, they put us on school buses. We had probably 3 of them, and in each case, the back 2 seats were pulled out, because that was where the drivers slept. So we get about halfway up there the first day, because we're driving at convoy speeds.
Where you going?
Our base camp, Log Base Alpha, there northwest of Hopper Bottom.
Okay. Up Tap Line Road?
Yes.
Okay.
it, 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 it took us 2 days to get up there. It took us 1 day coming back. But,
What is Tapline Road?
well, Joe, Tapline Road is a road that the pipeline from the refineries there on the Gulf, on the Gulf of Persia, up to the ports in Syria.
Okay.
It's nowhere near as big as the pipeline that they had running from the desalination mill or factories there on the Persian Gulf, but they pump a lot of oil through there. Okay, we got up there to the log base, and for the first 3 or 4 days, until we were able to get working mess halls going, we had these Lunchables. They're they're like bowls with a cover on them. And this one mess hall that was functioning would put several cases of those into a 10-gallon pot, fill it with water, put it on a stove, and heat it up. And that was our breakfast and dinner. And for lunch we had sea rats. No, not sea rats. We had MREs.
MREs.
Yeah. In fact, we had MREs for lunch the entire time we were out there in the desert. One of the first things we did was pair off on tents and get our tents put up. And I think the first night we were there, the person I shared a tent with and I sandbagged the entire tent. We had a blast wall in front of us, and we probably went up a minimum of 3 sandbags. And there were, we actually had like 2 rows coming up.
How far from the Iraqi border were you?
I'm going to say probably 30 miles.
Okay. Were you afraid Saddam may use chemicals?
Didn't think about it. There are so many ways in the desert that you can die. There's snakes, spiders, plain sheer stupidity.
Did you have your mop gear, your chemical gear?
I had the mop. We all had our mop gear. We all had our masks, which make great pillows if you're tired enough. No, it wasn't anything that I thought about. The first night of the ground campaign, and what we were doing, well, we were still getting ourselves acclimated, getting our camp built up, making sure that all the tents were sandbagged. We dug several bunkers for protection if shells start coming over. We built, the engineers came up with dozers and built berms all around our camp. And then after they did that, we went in and we set up fighting positions, places where we could fire our rifles from and have some kind of protection. We actually had a combination solar and you remember the burners that we used to use on the metal trash cans to sterilize our canteen, our canteen cups and our
Yes.
utensils? We had those inside the water tanks to keep the water hot. And we would get a shipment of water every afternoon. Well, we also had some of the nicest latrines there in the area. We had Baghdad Bob, who was a CNN reporter out there in the camp, and he actually used our showers one day. Hey, what can I say? Okay, on the first day of the ground campaign, I was in the mess hall that my unit and another one had set up. They were alternate. Our cooks would alternate. I'm in the mess hall having a MRE for lunch, and my buddy James Reed comes over and says, "Get your stuff together. We're heading north." James Reed and I both handled the team. He would take part, but I'd take the other part. I grabbed what was left of my lunch, went over to my tent, got my cot folded up, everything ready to go, so I could put it on our. That's right. We had a trailer that we had everything put into, and the team I was on plus another team headed off to the area where the first cab had established their POW cage. And we had a major from Florida who was a real pain in the ass. He wound up having us put our tent, the GP Large that we had, up in the area where the Iraqi POWs had been doing their business. Really smart man. Well, the first two buses got ready. I was on one bus as a guard, and James Reed was on the other bus as a guard.
Now, you had Iraqi POWs?
Yes.
Okay, where these POWs had the Grand War started?
Well, you have to understand, the ground war started sometime before noon on the 27th of February.
Yes.
Okay? We get the call at noon. So we'd been there. We had been away from our base camp for probably 7 hours when we started loading up. Now, it gets dark awful quick. We, okay. Well, yes, like I said, I was on one bus, Jim Reed was on the other bus. I have an M16 with 3 magazines. Now, mind you, I do not have a magazine, or I do not have a bullet chambered. What I had was a 45 issue, an Army issue 45 1911 that James Reed had been nickeled for me from the mail unit that was right next to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a holster underneath my black vest. And my thought was, first off, we were carrying the Iraqi, or members of the Iraqi Republican Guard. I knew it was dark. I had my flashlight and a rifle. If they're going to try and jump me, they're going to get a rifle. I'm not going to make it where they can get one that's ready to go, because I could drop the magazine out quicker than they could get it from me.
Mm-hmm.
Take out that 45, and there's going to be 7 loud noises,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody's going down. Now the driver had his rifle, but that wouldn't have done any good.
Now you're in the area where the Republican Guard was located.
There was a unit of the Republican Guard in the vicinity of where the 3 countries came together.
Kuwait, Iraq, and Arabia.
Right.
Okay.
Now, I did not know how close we were at that time.
Okay.
We had our people as guards riding behind us in trucks.
Mm-hmm.
Plus we had MPs in their armored Humvees.
How many in the convoy going north? How many vehicles?
We had 4 vehicles going up there. So that meant we had 4 of our vehicles to ride shotgun, plus there were 4 MP tracks.
Okay. And you were all still with the 413th?
Yes.
Okay.
And the MP tracks were all first cab.
Okay.
Well, we go about halfway back towards Hopperall-Botten. And we stop, pull off the road, and there's another group there to take over the POWs, detainees, enemy prisoners of war, whatever the current term is.
Yes.
And we went back up to the first cab cage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we go in, hop in our sleeping bags, try and get some sleep, and about 1 o'clock or so, we called it for another run. So we take another group down. This time, Jim Reed and I are riding in one of the shotgun trucks. Well, we go back, do the same thing that we did on the first run, come back. But by that time it's light. You could see the tank, you'd see the marks from the first cab's tank treads. And they rutted the pathway from the road to where the cage was. And we saw 2 full brigades of tanks lined up. And when we got over there, or we got back towards where we started from, we could see the border. We were like half a click away from it. And after a couple hours, they sent us back to our base camp. We made one or two more trips back up into the desert to find or to hunt for Iraqi personnel that had gotten lost, and we'd had one or two reports, but nothing turned up.
Okay.
So we came back, and then about the third or fourth day of the ground campaign, just before it, oh no, the ground campaign ended around 1 o'clock or so on the 2nd of March. And starting the next day, we started running prisoners to the various different military hospitals in the area. We'd run one every third day, it seemed like. Most of our runs were to hospitals that were reasonably close to the EPW cage. And it was a huge cage. Probably 5 or 6 times as big as Owen Stadium, and plus the practice field to the south of it.
Did you have any contact with the POWs?
Just when we were running them back and forth.
Okay.
We had one translator that would go with us periodically, and it worked out real well on one trip because we ran a bus and one day, and this one guy had just come back in from seeing one of the doctors. Well, I'm talking to the interpreter, and all of a sudden I noticed this guy that just come in slumped over. So I gave my rifle to my driver, went back to see what was wrong with the guy, and turned out he had asthma. He was smoking. So I yelled at one guy, one of the other Iraqis, to get over here and help me get this guy off. And I had somebody call for a medic. Well, the guy called over to give me a hand, just sat there. The interpreter, who was also an officer, told him, "Get your ass over there. Help that man out." And we got him back in. But
He slumped over in the bus?
yes,
What kind of buses did you have?
school buses.
School buses, okay. Were they yellow?
No. I think I've got a picture of a couple of them.
Okay.
But no, we got him in. We got him in, and apparently he survived at that point. But no, the runs were not bad. However, one run that we made down to King Khalid military city, which is kind of the Saudi equivalent of Fort Hood. And we took some prisoners down there to their hospital. And first off, you have to understand, we had a convoy speed of 45 miles an hour. Well, we get through with our business down there, start heading back up to the prisoner camp. We're going north. All of a sudden, we pull over to the shoulder. There are Saudis in their little bitty Hilux Toyota trucks, just flying just flying out in the desert. Coming south of us on the other shoulder is a French artillery convoy. Saudis coming down, and we got Saudis going up both lanes. Plus another group of Saudis on the outside of the other shoulder. And turned out my driver, well, the vehicle that James Reed was in was doing 65. My driver was doing 65. I don't know about the other truck behind us. I'm assuming that they were driving the same speed. I don't. Speed per se does not bother me much. But when you got that much traffic, it kind of, it's not so great. And I happen to have had the most fearless driver in the entire unit. She was an S4, she was an E4 working in the supply section. Crazy. Back around, and that's what we did for a while. I had the chance to examine a number of the Iraqi firearms that were confiscated by the first cab. And the most hilarious thing about the entire batch of firearms that we had, and you have to understand, when these weapons were brought to us, they were brought to us in a metal container about 10 feet wide, probably 10 feet high, and maybe 20 feet in length. We had Iraqi machine guns from various different manufacturers. We had AK-47s, AK-40Ms, Russian-made sniper rifles. There was a box of rifle ammunition that was marked Jordanian. And then there was a Mossberg 12-gauge shotgun that had a cut-off barrel and a pistol grip on it. Have no idea where that came from.
And where'd you get these weapons? They were confiscated?
They were picked up by the first cab.
Okay.
And they were brought back to the log base that we were in. And each unit was entitled to take 2 weapons home with them to put up on the wall of their reserve center. Of course, I found out later that the ones that we had picked out for the 413th kind of got rusted. One story that came out of all of this was there was one man in the mailroom there at Log Base Alpha. He found himself a pistol that he wanted. Well, he went out, got himself a case of CRE, a case of MREs, took the worst of those meals, opened it up, took everything out of it, took the pistol apart, put the parts in the bag, and resealed it. Put it back into the box. Had it all banded, it was all banded up. He had his shipping labels, took it to the mailroom. Well, it was lunchtime, and one person in the mailroom saw the box of MREs, opened it up, and he must have been a masochist, because he pulled that package out, opened it up, and here are all these gun parts coming out. The other guy wound up in big trouble. But when I went through customs my last day there on the airplane, I could have had one in my bag. And nobody would have noticed it because they did a very superfluous check. We flew back on military transport. No, was it military transport? I don't remember now what it was, but we flew back, went back to Pope Air Force Base, and then back into...
Did you get to Iraq? Did you go into Iraq?
No,
Okay.
I did not get into
Okay.
Kuwait or Iraq.
Okay.
Now, Jim Reed got into Kuwait for a few hours, but that didn't really make any difference to me,
Okay.
whether I did or not.
Okay.
I think it was like 2 trucks with the people from our unit.
So you get back to Pope Air Force Base.
Get back to Pope Air Force Base, and we go through out processing. Let me back up a few minutes. When we left our base camp, we went out a different way to Daharan than the way we came back in, or the way we came out into the desert. And we got there. We were put into one of the buildings that make up Kobar Towers.
Yeah.
Kobar Towers was originally built by the Saudis as a place where the Bedouins could basically settle down. Had all the modern conveniences, but really didn't pan out. We got there on the 9th of April. First thing I did was I found the telephone area, called the old lady, and wished her a happy anniversary. That was one thing I could not forget. The next morning, we went out, took all of our vehicles to the wash racks, and we spent all day cleaning those vehicles up. Then we went back to Cobar. The next day, we were called into CIF, that's clothing issue facilities, and we each got a new set of BDUs, desert BDUs, what we called the chocolate chips, a chocolate chip fluffy hat, and we were supposed to get the rough out desert boots. Well, they didn't have one in my size. So I just continued with the black ones. We were there about a week, and like GIs everywhere, we did some shopping, went to one of the malls. James Reed, myself, my tent mate, and the major from Florida went to this Thai restaurant. And some people went over and bought carpets, gold, and other items. And at the end of that week, was it the end of the week? Maybe it's midway through the next week. No, end of the week. It was when we flew back to the States. Okay, we got into Bragg. We're doing our route processing, and we're told if anybody has more than 2 sets of desert BDUs, you have to turn the extra sets in. Well, I was sitting next to the commander. I said, like hell, and his comment was, good one. So as far as I know, nobody turned any in, because not one set appeared on any clothing register. We got in. Oh, we got through all the stuff. We waited there until we could get home, and my wife wound up buying a airline ticket for me, so I wound up going home a day early. Got back into Will Rogers Airport in Oklahoma City about 10 o'clock at night. My wife, 2 friends of mine, surprised me with a Volkswagen Vanagon, and we drove home. On the way home, we stopped off at a restaurant there in Norman and ate. The next morning, after I dropped our friends off at their homes, and the next morning, when we got up, we packed up some clothes. My wife had gotten my dress greens cleaned up for me, and we drove down to Houston for my sister's wedding. And that was pretty much my time in the Gulf.
Yeah.
But I cannot complain. It was a good experience. It helped a lot when I was over in Bosnia. and it made me a veteran.
What'd you do in Bosnia?
Okay, I'm going to have to back up a little bit between the two. While I was in the Gulf, I didn't realize it, but I had gone up for the Majors Board. I was passed over, and as a result, I basically lost my commission. I kept the commission for about 2 more months until about the 20th of July, I believe. By the 20th of August, I was back in uniform. Made my first drill, and there I am, an E6, or correction, an E5 sergeant, 3-stripe, and I'm having a hard time fitting in because I have to remember I don't call Captain so-and-so by his first name like I was used to. It's, I had to change my entire mental processes. Well, since I figured since I'm doing this, I'm going to do all the training that goes in for each grade. I went to PLDC, did PLDC at the unit and went to a base in California for the last week. And I was one of the top 10 people on the land nav course. Then a couple months later, or a couple years later, I do the basic NCO course. I go to Belize at one point. They gave me the malaria shot while I was doing one of my classes. And on the way home to Norman from Broken Arrow, I'm turning, my car's going from air conditioning to heating because my temperature's just really flip-flopping. All right, I get to BNOC, do that, come up for E6, make it. I had more than enough points to make the cutoff before the board added any. So now comes Bosnia. I get called in early November of '96 for a week. And I'm given a laptop and all the notes that they'd gotten from, or that we'd gotten from another unit already in Bosnia. And I'm putting everything together, just like I did for the 3rd Corps G5. Mm-hmm. And I spent all week doing that. Well, spent about 6 days doing that. And I go home, start building a briefing, and there was a computer cafe down in Norman at the time, and I used their facilities to make some transparencies. Excuse me. Come the Friday before Thanksgiving of '96, we all sign in. That's our unit, well, the 446,
46.
yeah, the 46 personnel that are going over. We had 2 people from New Jersey, one of whom was an idiot, and a captain from Florida who was also a PETA. It's got to be something about Florida. Then we had people from the 413th filling in. And on Saturday morning, I give a briefing on Bosnia. It was a good briefing, but I had made a set of 3.5-inch floppy disks for each team, and I think we had 8 or 9 teams. And all the information that was in the briefing was on the diskettes. We went to, that's on Saturday. Sunday, snowstorm. We fly to Bragg. We got out in, where was it? We got out in North Carolina about an hour's ride from Bragg.
Raleigh?
Could be. I'd have to take a look at the map. But we went in, we got into Bragg. I kind of got my butt chewed out because I'd been smart enough and I'd learned my lesson that I bought some black long johns, put on, and I had an OD green T-shirt on, except that the black kind of showed up, and the commander saw it on the news, and he didn't like it. He didn't like me too much. I don't think he liked me all that much anyway. So we get over there to Bragg. We go through our train up period, which was about 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And December 7th, we fly over. We get into the Azores. Now the next morning, get something to eat, and we find out that a officer in the 552nd Air Wing had been canned. Sexual harassment. Then we fly over to Aviano, where we can't fly into an airfield in Hungary because it's socked in. So we find out there the next morning via Stars and Stripes that the commander of the detachment of the 552nd had been canned. For the same, because he hadn't taken care of the first guy that was canned. Sexual harassment. All right, we get down into Tazar, and we spend the night there. We have briefings the next morning, and then we get trucked out to our various bases. My first base was Camp Colt, which was the which was in the northwestern part of the Bosnian sector. The people from the 413th went into the Croat sector,
Which sector?
the Croat sector.
Oh, okay.
I'm there at Colt for about 3 weeks. I went in on a couple of I went in on a couple of missions into the two towns that we had responsibility for, which were both in the northern part of the Croat sector. To get to one of them, you had to go through this road, which was, well, there was trash so far into the road. There was a one-lane road, and you had to be careful because there were still explosive charges inside the area. So we went in there. We did our thing. We talked to the town mayors. We explained what we could do, what we couldn't do. That we weren't going to promise them anything, but we would do what we could.
What could you do?
We could work with them to get grants for cash for cleanup projects.
Rebuild, whatever?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Pretty much typical World War II German type military government
Okay.
taskings.
Yes.
That day I ate the best food I've ever had in a mess hall. The mess hall. The other unit that was up there was the Nord Pole forces. Norwegians, Swedes, Poles, probably Denmark as well. The food was great. Better than anything you've ever had in a GI mess hall. And I had shrimp no, not shrimp. I had lobster in one mess hall. But then we went back, and I made 4 or 5 more trips off the base after that. But that was because I was also functioning as our NCOIC for that team. I was there for about 3 weeks, maybe 4, no, 3 weeks. And I was talking to a Lieutenant Colonel Jack Farr, who came in, I think, right about the time you were leaving. And I asked him, please get me out of that spot, because if I knew that if I'd stayed there any longer, I was going to get into a big row with this captain from Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Well, right before, I guess it was right after New Year's, we had a convoy come up from Tuzla. And the commander was there, Jack Barr was there, and a few others. And I was told, pack your gear, get ready, you're going so-and-so. Did that. Nope, that was easy. We got in the vehicles, we started going off, and instead, okay, if you were smart, when you left Camp Colt, you turned to your right. You could go down to you could get to the camp we had. I can't even think of the camp's name now. But it was further east from us, and it covered the northeast sector of where we were.
Mm-hmm.
The convoy turned left. And then they made a right after about 10 kilometers. They got onto a road that was still mined. Fortunately, we went no more than a kilometer or two up when the commander decided, I think we'd better stop here and back up. So we did, and he took us on a tour of the northern sector, or the northern part of our sector, and we finally got back down to Tuzla. The next day, then Major James Reed came and picked me up, took me down, and I became the S1, the S2, no, the S1, S4, George.
George.
Yes, George. George is that member of the staff or the command who gets the odd jobs.
Okay.
When we sent our vehicles up to Tuzla to pick up some armored pads for our Humvees, I was a convoy commander. When it was time to organize getting my people over to medical to get to get the third, either Hep C or Hep B shots. If somebody was at the front gate to talk to the JAG and finance officers about damages, I was the one that went and got them. Okay. Yeah. I did basically everything.
Okay. What's the problem in Bosnia?
Okay, very simple. Croats, Roman Catholic, Serbs, Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox, Bosniaks, Muslim, who turned Muslim only after Constantinople was taken, and they wanted, or the Bosniaks wanted their protection, because the Bosnians were originally another blend of Christian. Well, the Croats had permission from Rome to attack them. The Serbs had permission from Constantinople or wherever to attack the Bosnians. It's like a three-way civil war,
Oh,
which wasn't civil.
Did we make any difference over there?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think that in the last part of the 90s, that was the best. Well, what we did was the best we could do.
Yeah.
We tried to make a functional country out of them. And I can live with myself. I could not have lived with myself if I had to go to Kosovo. Because that was an out-and-out land grab.
When did you retire?
February 2nd, 1998.
Well, Jim, this is an excellent interview.
I apologize for my voice going in and out.
No. I want to thank you for your service and thank you for the interview.
Well,
Again, this is April 22nd, 2021. My name is Joe Todd. This has been an interview at James Holland in Oklahoma City. Thank you.
thank you, sir.
Okay.